Today's show sponsor is Sienna Dawn Media Integrated Marketing Agency. Sienna Dawn Media is more than just a marketing agency. They're your partners in progress. Their mission is simple: to alleviate marketing bandwidth, allowing creative business owners to focus on what they set out to do: create. Sienna Dawn Media empowers creatives to thrive without the burden of managing their own social media and marketing campaigns. So if you're ready to set sail toward new horizons, let Sienna Dawn Media chart the course and steer your business toward success. Visit siennadawnmedia.com.
Blah, 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 blah.
Welcome to the Our Forever Smiles podcast, a podcast created to support mothers of children who were born with clefts and those who love them. I'm your host, Laura Arroyo, and I'm also a mother of a daughter who was born with a surprise cleft palate. I know the challenges you face every day. Whether you have just learned the difficult news of your baby's cleft lip or palate, you're in the midst of pre-op or post-op, or you're an OG cleft mom, this podcast is for you. In a weekly conversation, we will talk about everything from feeding and speech therapy to surgery and school. We'll share tips from guest experts and advocates, and even share a little joy in the process. You can listen to Our Forever Smiles wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. Hello, and welcome back to the Our Forever Smiles Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. I am Laura Arroyo. Before we jump into this episode, I would like to invite you to join this community to hear conversations with other cleft moms and advocates that will help you feel supported along your journey. All I want you to do is click on the Facebook group page that is linked to the episode notes here. You can speak directly to the guests from this podcast and ask questions and talk to a community of cleft moms that are eager for answers but also willing to help. As a note, we are not medical doctors, and we do not intend for you to use the information that we share here as medical advice. We are parents and advocates who love our children, and we are sharing our own personal experiences. I'm really excited to talk to our guest today, primarily because she's really in the midst of her cleft journey or her son's cleft journey. And I think that I haven't had the opportunity to speak with anyone that is in the thick of it. And I've actually been really hesitant to ask moms that I know that just gave birth or that are in the middle of NAM and stuff, because I know based on speaking with other moms how difficult that can be. And it's just to put something on their schedule is really wild. And so I've been hesitant to ask people to make this type of commitment, but I also saw Summer's Instagram, and I just want to say that I was she's so hot mama. It just made me think, and I'll get into, fitness and her perspective on that. But Summer is a first-time mommy of a beautiful baby boy. She's been married to her best friend for an amazing 4 years now. She works as a senior e-commerce specialist for a high-end furniture company and is trying to become her son's biggest advocate and educate everyone around her. Welcome, Summer.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
So seriously, I saw her Instagram and I was like, oh, wow, she's really hot. But the thing that I also thought about as well is I guess based on, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, based on what I saw, you were really getting into your fitness journey, or you just really started to, I guess, work on your body or care about your body more, or more body focused. And then, of course, you became pregnant. And then obviously later on down, you get this diagnosis. What in your mind were you thinking about, I don't know, the relationship between those things? Based on what I feel I saw, probably in the best shape that you'd ever been, I imagine. And then having this kind of happen, or this receiving this diagnosis.
Hello, everyone. Sorry to interrupt, but I need a little bit of help. If you're listening to this on the Apple Podcast app or YouTube, you may see a follow plus sign or subscribe button. If you're able to, it would mean the world to me if you could follow or subscribe. That's the best way to support this show. If you subscribe, I'm able to show it to potential guests or different brands. It helps to grow the show and reach more communities to continue building awareness about the cleft lip and palate journey on a global scale. Thank you so, so much. Back to the conversation.
Yeah, I know that was a big part that was hard for me to overcome, was because when you think of birth defects, you think of somebody who did something that was unhealthy or was doing certain things. And knowing I was coming from such a healthy background, it was like I was even in more shock. Been into fitness for I don't know how long now, like 6 years. And I really got into it, like extremely into it, like right before pregnancy. And I'm sure you've seen some of the the photos on there, but I needed to capture my body before I had a baby because I knew we were going to start trying. And I'm like, I need to capture this because I know things can change once a baby pops out. So
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Okay. So my assumptions were kind of right. So you've been into fitness for 6 years and then you were really into it like right before you became pregnant, but you decided to capture this moment, right? So you guys started doing like family planning and that sort of thing. Like you were very thoughtful about having a baby and that's how it came about.
yeah, we were gonna start planning. Honestly, we thought it was going to take a while for me to get pregnant. I've always had like hormonal issues, like from periods all over the place, everything. So it was really hard to get a cycle count. So we're like, oh, this is going to take a year to get pregnant. Let's just see what happens. And it happened the first time. And we were shocked, but happy. We were very happy.
It's so funny because I hear that all the time. People are like, oh, yeah, we started trying and we thought it was going to take a while. And then it's boom, like first or second try, it happens. So, yeah.
Exactly.
So it's you're excited for this. You get the news that you're pregnant. Tell me about the day that you found out about your son's cleft.
So the day I found out, which I don't like, at least from what I've been listening to on your podcast, I know a lot of people find out at their 20-week scan. I found out at a 13-week scan. Um, it's called an NT ultrasound scan. So I actually did go to maternal fetal medicine doctor at Akron Children's here in Ohio. Basically, it's a check to see on the baby's like nuclear translucency and like the clear tissue located on the back of the baby's neck. So it's an easier check for some syndromes compared to doing the actual genetic testing. That, and honestly, it was such a whirlwind of a day, as you can expect. I actually had my mother with me at that appointment because my husband, he's a fire paramedic, so his work schedule is all over the place. That was the first time she was going to see the baby on the ultrasound. So it was a very, well, we were hoping to be exciting day. Ultrasound went fine. And all of a sudden she left and we were waiting quite some time but we weren't thinking of anything. And then a doctor came in and pulled us in her office and I was still happy as could be. I had no idea, but I could tell something was off with my mom. I feel like she knew something was going to be happening at this appointment. So she sat us down and she says, I'm sorry to say this, but it seems like your baby has a cleft. And I'm still looking at her. I don't know what any of this means. I'm like, I've heard of a cleft, but I couldn't put my finger on what the heck it was. So she was showing us pictures and she was very certain it was cleft lip and palate involved. And it was extremely hard to wrap my head around because I was like, how can you even tell on a 13-week scan to begin with? Because they're so tiny. So just that in general was hard. And then right then they had us meet with the genetic doctor, which was great to get this all done at once. But it was very overwhelming for an appointment we weren't expecting to happen. The genetic doctor is saying to be connected with all these different syndromes. And half of them were basically stating, oh, most likely we would have to terminate your child. and all this. Like, I understand they were trying to educate me on what the worst possibility it could be. But at the same time, it was just so much to where I thought, okay, it looks like we're going to have a miscarriage or some sort of surgery to get rid of the baby. So it was a very hard day for me because I felt like I was already mourning the child that I'll supposedly be losing, because they said it's most likely linked to all these other syndromes and the baby won't make it. And of course, this had to be happening during the holidays, which was terrible timing on top of it all. So it was definitely a whirlwind. Thankfully, we were able to get my husband home from work. So it was just a long day at the house of crying. Couldn't stop crying for how many days. Thankfully, we did get our genetic testing done, and they all came back clear as can be, which was great. But they also did want to make sure, they wanted to wait for the 20-week ultrasound just to make sure that there wasn't anything else that the screening didn't really catch. Of course, we got that all cleared, but at the same time, in the back of your mind, you're like, okay, what now? Well, maybe there is something off as well. But thankfully, at the 20-week ultrasound, it was just fine too. That was the start of knowing about the cleft diagnosis.
Yeah. Interesting. So instead of doing like a NIPT or like a comprehensive panel, you all opted in to do this. You said nuclear, what was it called again?
It's like a nuchal translucency ultrasound.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, we did that instead of doing the genetic testing, because part of me didn't want to do it because I was like, oh, we're going to love our child no matter what. And since we had like literally no history in either of our families of anything, we didn't think it would be necessary. And my doctor recommended the screening. So we just got it done for the heck of it. And that's how we found out about his cleft.
Yeah. Wow. No, I asked about it again because I'd never heard of that. And I think that that's just so people know that they have that option to ask for as well. Is I think it's valuable. I think especially like for people that I know a lot of people get really nervous about like family planning again if they have a baby that is already born. And if you like, you can find out pretty early if you had that testing. But it is, wow, like rough because you just learn at 13 weeks and then you have so much long to go and to fester and think about this. What was your husband's reaction to all of it?
He was very upset as well. He's more the strong type, so he did stay strong for me and was very supportive. Thankfully, everything was great. He kept hoping. Of course, in the back of my mind, I was hoping too that they were wrong. They didn't know what they were seeing. So he was really staying optimistic, and I was trying to stay more realistic. But we did the best we could. We kept waiting for the 20 weeks. They're like, oh, well, maybe they were wrong. But we had an ultrasound again before my 20 weeks. I want to say it was like 16. And they got like the perfect front on image of him, and I could see it perfectly. And part of me was like, oh, now I know. And at the same time, I'm like, oh, shoot, they are accurate about that.
Yeah, I would have thought the same thing. Like, I know I've heard like other people that are like, oh, we're going to pray this away. And I'm a faith-filled person. Like I Christian beliefs, but I also lean on the side of logic and that type of thing. So I've also like somewhere in the middle of that. So I have heard of people like, oh, the Lord is going to fix this. But I think at a 13-week appointment, I probably would have felt that as well. No, they could get it wrong. The baby is still like essentially blob. Like it's still, so I would definitely, I feel like I would share those feelings, like in not like second guessing, I guess at that point. So yeah, no, I think that can be challenging too. And then like having to wait for that additional confirmation, I think is really
the wait period was the worst for every
Yeah.
single stage, from waiting for the genetic screening to the 20-week scan. And then after the 20-week scan, obviously I feel better, at least knowing that there wasn't anything else going wrong with him possibly. And I know our doctor there really did agree not to do on the belly test. What is that called?
Amniocentesis, I think it
Yes,
is.
amniocentesis. Yeah. So he definitely can never remember that.
I don't either. I may not have said it right, to be honest with you. I just said it.
So he definitely did not recommend doing that, undergoing that, because it just would be too much on the baby and I. So I was happy to have a doctor back me up on knowing that everything was going to be fine.
Yeah. I feel like you'd gone through a lot by that point too.
I know.
No, seriously, like that's so much. But like after diagnosis and like where you finally were like, okay, it is what it is. What did you do from that point? Were you like a person that like Googled everything? Were you like scared yourself to death? Or were you someone that's okay, let's go into like solution mode? Or is it like a combination of all of those things? What was that process like for you after the accepting?
I'd say a combo. I was really, as day one, I was Googling 1,000 things. I educated myself so much. And then I found like other moms on Instagram and looked at their stories. I think I was on my phone for hours, just hours of educating myself and just seeing what everyone was going through. I think I joined the support groups on Facebook on day 1 or 2 as well, just looking for some reassurance, everything, which was great to educate yourself. But at the same time, it was scary, especially knowing and hearing everything that they're going to go through was the worst part. And the sad thing is, that's not the first thing you think of, is when they first tell you about the cleft lip and palate and they show you the photos, you automatically think just appearance. Nobody thinks about anything else behind the scenes of it. I actually did the research. I was like, wow, I'm like, that was like the last thing on my mind since I pretty much educated myself. So that's why I feel like since then, like I needed to educate at least all our family and friends of like, hey, this isn't just like cosmetics. There is more to this than that this poor little baby's going to go through, not just them, but us as well.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that so many of us don't really think about. And of course, I've talked about this on the podcast endlessly, but thinking about, like, oh, which would you have rather have? And it's Giselle's not lip affected. She was palate only. And it came as a complete surprise and shock to me. It's more about like like the way that functionality, like the way her quality of life versus, of course, the lips have some functional use, but we're talking about feeding, speech, like all of those types of things, like sinus infections, ears, hearing, like that is really intense. Like sometimes there were some days that I wish, wow, like I wish it was just a lip. It's like, how do you like gauge that? Or like, how do you, I don't know. It's a lot of back and forth. I'm actually reading this book right now called Choosing Ourselves, and it is phenomenal. But it's about a mom and her son, and he was born in the 70s with a bilateral cleft lip and palate. And she talks about like her experience with that and just the like ups and downs of emotions of feeling like so much guilt and then feeling guilty for feeling guilty and then feeling guilty for like showing up as a mother that is filled with guilt to your child. Like it's like so many like different battles that you have to go through and it's so like hard. Is that something that you've been like experiencing or that you have gone through in your process, like guilt?
Definitely a lot of guilt, a lot of times feeling depressed about it all. It's just terrible because you think like I caused this. That's like feeling number one, like what, how, why, how, and what did I do to affect this poor little baby? And then it just keeps piling on from there, pretty much. It's unfortunate. And I don't think anyone understands until you're in this situation. And I know, and that's why I try to advocate. And I really wish a lot of more people knew about this type of birth defect. And to be honest, like all birth defects out there, I feel like it's really hush, and I don't think it should be. But I know a lot of people I've talked to, a lot of family and friends, ones that I know I could be open with, and a lot that I can't, because a lot of people I did come out to, some are like, oh, that's nothing. Oh, that's no big deal. And then you get the other spectrum to where they think it's the end of the world and the baby's not going to be able to live, basically. Definitely get both spectrums of people that you talk to.
Yeah, for sure. I felt that way as well, wanting to tell people. And I think part of me was like, wanting to be like, no, I don't know, not like point the finger, but be like, no, this isn't just a Laura problem. Like, this could also happen to you. Like, it can happen to you. So that's like why I'm sharing this information, because I'm not, it's like a small percentage, but you're not
Yeah.
the exception to this. I was completely shocked and no history of any of this, and it happened to me. And yeah, I like felt like this deep need to share my experiences with other people, family members included. And it is like it's like you get a variety of responses. I think the people that, I mean, I would hope, but the people that share like, oh, that's easy, it's okay. I think those are the people that are just like, they want to make you feel better about it. And yeah, I don't know. And so I have some grace for those type of people that are trying to just be nice. I don't know. I don't know what to call
Yeah.
it.
It's like now I've come to terms with those type of conversations, but at that moment when it was like very fresh of the first few weeks, I definitely did take it hard with those type of conversations, but I've learned to just let it go and just continue to educate people. Like I know during our baby shower, I created a whole pamphlet about, I created this giant pamphlet. I created what a cleft is, what he has, had images, and then I even told the whole story of a family I follow on Instagram of what their child went through, just as an example of what our baby boy could be going through when he is here in the world.
That is wild. Do you remember the family that you shared?
Oh yeah, the story behind Two Smiles,
Oh,
Taylor.
yes. I've seen them. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay. So fast forward to your delivery. Is it this scene in a movie? Your water breaks, you rush out of the house. Were you induced? Like, planned C-section? What was your
Oh,
labor delivery story?
I was in early labor for 3 days. It was torture. So I had contractions anywhere from every 5 minutes to every hour. So yeah, so it's like you're already getting started with 3 days of no sleep before birth. That was fun. I was exhausted. When the day of actual labor hit, my water did break, but it was like leaking slowly. So I wasn't entirely sure what was happening. Obviously knew I was not peeing myself, so I figured probably should be going to the hospital. I called my husband because, of course, he was at work. So he came, got me, and we went. And honestly, active labor went by pretty fast, obviously compared to early labor. We were in active labor for probably 6 hours, and by the time he was fully effaced, I like pushed him out within 15 minutes. And he was out in the world real fast. Honestly, it was funny. The nurse that was like, "Oh, let's just do a practice push," and I'm like, "Okay." And they're like, and then she's like, "Oh my God, stop!" She was like, "My head's about to come out." She's like, "We need to call the doctor." I'm like, "What? The doctor's not here? What's going on? I want this baby out of me." So they just closed my legs and they're like, "Oh, let's just sit here for 30 more minutes while we wait on the doctor." And of course, I'm naive. This is my first kid. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Thankfully, everything was still good, obviously, but now I've heard stories of people who have waited And then things would happen with the umbilical cord or like odd things. So next time if that ever happens, that baby's coming out. But yeah, thankfully he was born just fine.
That is wild. Seriously. Like, they can do that? Like, where does the baby go? Does it just go back in?
He was right there, but apparently closing my legs just gonna keep him in. But he was in the birth. He had to be in the canal for a while because his head shape was a little squished.
But I guess they're still in the sack, so it's okay.
His sac, he didn't have the sac anymore.
Oh, yeah, because it was broken, right? Like from
It
the
was
water.
broken. Yeah.
That is so odd.
I thought that was very odd as well. But of course, at the time, you're like so stuck in the whirlwind of things. I just am trusting these nurses that they know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thankful to
Yeah.
God that nothing bad happened.
Sorry, I got like so stuck on that. But it sounds terrible. But I imagine myself being stuck in like your nose is smashed and like you're just like you can't breathe. So I don't know. Babies are incredible and they're so resilient. They are like so resilient. And so finally, when you were able to like get him out and see him, was it just what you were expecting?
It was a whirl. I don't know if it was because I was just so exhausted, but I was just in shock that I had a baby just lying on my chest that I just pushed out of my body. And of course, I loved him. It took a while for me to get over the shock. I feel it took a very long time. I loved him though. He was beautiful. And that's another, I feel, big thing is you're going through the whirlwind of emotions during pregnancy of what my baby's going to look like. You're getting down in the dumps about it. And I know I've seen a bunch of other moms who mentioned it on like the support groups too. And they all say, oh, you get over it when your baby's out. But it is so real. Like you get so nervous and so scared and so sad during pregnancy. But once the baby's there, you're like so in love with that smile that I hate that I got so wrapped up in those feelings during pregnancy. I feel like when you have those type of diagnoses, you don't enjoy your pregnancy as much as quote unquote like normal pregnancy. But I really wish that I did enjoy it a lot more. And I recommend to all mothers out there to not get wrapped up in those feelings because they will go away immediately when you see your baby.
Yeah. It's so hard. I get like teary eyed just like thinking about it because it's so true. I'm like, wish I could just go back. And there's an episode that I recorded with Morgan and she said it perfectly. She's like, I wish I could just go back and like hug myself. And because you just don't feel the same. And it's so heavy and you carry like this weight for so long. And it's heartbreaking to have to face that and go through that. And then you come out on the other side of it, like totally fine. But then when you reflect back on it, it's wow, like it was really sad. Like I was really heartbroken over something that's going to be okay. That is, it's going to be all right. And I think that people also don't talk enough about, and this may be universal in motherhood. Again, like what I said about like the movies, like the whole movie scene of when they hand you your baby and it's like in the movie, like what everyone like expects you to say is, I instantly fell in love. Yeah. I like hadn't slept in 3 days. I am just happy to be done. Like I'm just happy to be done with the experience. Just, you just want to pass out. And you don't have that. I know I didn't. And it's so funny because my fiance was telling me, like, he goes, you didn't react the way that I thought that you would. And I'm like, you also didn't. You weren't in labor for 3 days.
That's how I was. I was in such shock. I'm like, I just thought it'd be totally different. Like I thought I'd be bawling my eyes out and like immediately in love. But sometimes I'm just staring at them and I'm just so tired. I'm like, what is going on right now?
Yeah, it's a lot happening. Okay, so then after that, did he do any NICU time?
No, thankfully he did not. I know that was like one of my biggest worries was NICU, feeding and breathing. He ate like a champ and is still eating like a champ. I could not be more thankful because that was obviously, I know what a lot of people go through with their kids is having a hard time feeding them. But he did really well since day one and is still doing good. They joke. They say they get it from me. He gets it from me because I'm such a foodie and all I do is eat. I overeat. I know you see my Instagram. I look skinny, but I can eat. So yeah. All joking. I'm like, oh, he must have your appetite. And I'm so thankful if that's the real reason that he does have my appetite.
Yeah.
So yeah, thankfully he didn't have any NICU time. We were only in the hospital, has to stay 2 days. But I didn't want to be there any longer. And of course, neither did my husband, sleeping on the lovely recliners that they do. So we went home the next day with them.
Oh, that's wonderful. Because they obviously felt like he was comfortable eating and he was in a good place. So you all were able to go home. And so obviously you've been home ever since. So what has like treatment been like since going home?
Treatment. See, we have our weekly doctor appointments and we are so thankful we have the hospital like 10 minutes down the road. I know I hear some of these mothers who travel hours and I could not be more thankful that they're literally just down the road because I couldn't fathom doing that. Obviously we would for our child, but it's definitely very convenient. But our appointments have been interesting. We did have a prenatal meeting with our plastic surgeon who walked us through everything, what we would be expecting. But now we do tapings, which at that point it's funny. It's once they introduced tapings, like I was devastated. Like I cried having to tape him because he squished his little beautiful face and they're crying and they don't understand what's happening. But now that's like a walk in the park now that Am has been introduced. Okay. I'm like, if only I could have talked to myself a few weeks prior, knowing that, hey, this is no big deal until you get this device.
So wait, you mentioned like weekly appointments. So I want to go back. So are you seeing like the pediatrician or are you're saying you're seeing your Cleft team weekly?
Yes. So we're seeing the Cleft team weekly, mostly the ortho and his team. At first, it was just double checking to make sure the tapings were going as well. And then now we get our new NAM devices each week. So they change the size each week for us.
Have you, during those appointments, does the surgeon come in or do they like take images of it? Like, how does the surgeon, I don't know, is there some type of, oh, okay, this is good enough or we're seeing improvements here, or is it solely reliant on the ortho?
Solely on the ortho to really give guidance. Like I know within a few weeks of just doing the tapings, his cleft did close by half because it was like 12 millimeters. And then it got to 6. It's been slowly closing since. We're not sure on the target that they're expecting for surgery. We have not gotten a clear answer on that. Are not a big fan of not hearing what our target goal is. But I know they said they do want to do a first surgery when he's around 5 to 6 months. And we do have a large Cleft team meeting coming up where we meet with all of the different specialists like the ENT, speech, feeding, every single doctor we'll ever deal with in the future. So we're hoping to get surgery finally scheduled, like at least a date down by next week. What we're hoping for.
Would that be your first all Cleft team appointment?
Yeah, that will be our first.
Yeah, those are fun. I mean, that sounded sarcastic, but it is actually because you get to see everyone and like it makes you feel like everyone's on the same page. Like you can share your goals across. It's a long day, but I don't know. I would always get excited about those appointments because it was like, okay, now like my team, it feels like they're yours. Like,
and no, I'm looking forward to it because I get all my questions answered and I feel like we're finally like moving forward when we have that appointment.
Yeah. What's been the hardest part about the NAM?
Hardest part. The problem is I know there's like a lot of different NAMs out there that doctors use. Ours is like a plastic one, which according to them, they've used all different kinds. And this one is best. When we were first introduced with it, he did not like it. And this was something we didn't see coming because he was such a good eater. We were like, nothing's going to get in the way of him eating. There's just no way ever. As soon as that device got put in his mouth, he would cry the whole time. He would not eat. He wouldn't stop crying. It was the most devastating thing. And of course, that week was the first week that my husband decided, well, we weren't sure, obviously, we didn't know how the NAM device would go or when we were going to start it in the first place. But he did start back to work that week. And being married to a fire paramedic, they're gone for days on end. Dealing with that all by myself was a lot. It was a lot. Had a lot of breakdowns. He had, and of course, through baby, had a lot of breakdowns because, the teams really push it. They're like, he has to wear it 24/7. Otherwise, what's the point? He's not going to have a good outcome. Which I get. Pushing it is a great thing. But at the same time, when he is not eating or just being normal, it was devastating. He was not happy. And he had a bunch of sores in his mouth from the device. So we thankfully did get it resized a few times. And he's just now, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks now, is just starting to get used to it. He still won't eat with it. I know a lot of people luck out and their babies can still eat with the device, but he just will not. So we have to take it in and out per feeding. But now he doesn't cry nonstop, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah. I was going to ask, how did you cope through all of that? Because that's just hearing them cry all day and just feeling like you can't do anything to help, or whatever is making them cry is supposed to be helping, right? It's a very interesting position to be in. So how do you take care of yourself, mentally, emotionally? How do you get through that?
Ooh, I guess all the mothers out there, just stay positive and know it'll get better. But during that time frame, I just didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I really did have mental breakdowns consistently, just seeing him go through all that and especially dealing with it alone. It was a lot. It was very hard to cope with, but we got through it. Thankfully, after they resized it, he was a lot better. And one of the nurses spoke to me and they're like, you and your baby's mental health is way more important. She's like, the doctor's not allowed to say this, but your mental health is way more important. She's, if you would need to take it out, it could be taken out for a little while. Don't get so wrapped up in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I've spoken to surgeons as well. And it is, this is probably the more the better, right? You're going to have the best outcome. But if this is going to cause you to really lose it, then that's not worth it.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
will work with what they have and you just do your best. I know. And even there's some people that the families that have to travel those 2 and 3 hours to get resized, they're not going every week. So there's some gaps in care. And so it's not the end of the world. And surgeons have made it happen. So I guess that's the one thing that I want to stress as well is do what you can, right? Of course, do your best. Don't just do whatever, but also don't your mental health is important. Your emotional health is important. And so you just want to make sure that you take care of yourself. What is something that you're looking forward to the most? You're still very early on in his journey, but there is exciting moments to come. What do you think are those?
Honestly, I'm really excited. Oh, I'm happy and sad at the same time. I'm really looking forward.
I know what you're going to say.
It's for surgery. For both, not just his sake, but my husband and I's. We don't have to do the tapings. We don't have to do the NAM. We can basically be a normal baby after surgery. But at the same time, I'm going to miss his original smile. I'm going to miss it so much. But we are looking forward to that. And that's another thing. I feel as a Cleft mom, you get so wrapped up in everything you have to do for their Cleft that forget about just being like a normal mom. Oh, we got to do tummy time. Oh, we should be reading books and all this other stuff, or in like skin to skin and all this. But you're so wrapped up in all this medical stuff that you forget about the fun development games you should be doing with your child. I feel like that was my biggest thing that I wish I wasn't so wrapped up in. And I really thought about the other things that I could be doing with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think all of us wait for that surgery date. Like it is, you'll see like people in groups and stuff. They changed my surgery date and people are like devastated. And let me tell you, I had my surgery date. I think Giselle was 4 weeks and they're like, do you want to get on the books? And I was like, yep, I sure do.
Yep.
And so I had it scheduled. I had waited. It was like, this was her moment. And if they had rescheduled that, I would have been devastated. So I know the feeling that I see with people like on the groups and stuff. Like you look forward to that so much. And it's just because you want to have a sense of like normalcy in your life, or to just see like progress and all the hard work that you've been doing. Right. And like to see them have a better quality of life. And so, yeah. Oh my goodness. Like surgery hands down is like the thing.
Is like a month after surgery. Once recovery and everything else is over. That's what I'm looking for.
It is exciting. Surgery is difficult as well. Like I know a lot of people have experienced like some really strong feelings about handing their baby over, and you never forget that. That's like something that you don't forget. You also never forget seeing your baby for the first time after their surgery. A lot of mothers say that they don't even recognize their babies. It's whose baby is this?
I've heard that. I know I'm going to feel that way. And I know like when he was first out, my husband and I were looking at like YouTube videos of like surgeries, and we just started bawling our eyes out because we both did, because you just see these parents handing off their child to surgery and they're just like waiting in the hospital. It's just so emotional. I'm gonna be a wreck. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if I could give you any advice, because you said you're a foodie, and so I was like, as soon as I handed her over, I was like, "Where's the cafeteria?" Because I was like, I'm just gonna buy everything they got this morning.
That's smart.
Okay.
Noted.
So it was just, we went to go get breakfast, and they sent like text messages and things like that to give us updates on like where she was. And Akron is that a big hospital system?
Yeah, Akron Children's, it's supposedly world known for one of the best children's hospitals out there. Got good representation for Cleft team. I know we were debating on them, or Columbus, Ohio has a great team as well, but they're about like 2 hours from us. So it's really hard to weigh it out, but just knowing one is right down the street and they got such good ratings and people raved about their teams that we couldn't really beat that at all.
Yeah. Well, that's good, because that way you may have that, like that whole text thing. I know people like in the bigger hospitals they're able to they have more technology and stuff. Will they place tubes, or you'll probably learn about that at your Cleft team appointment as well, like when they'll do the tubes and stuff?
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about. Obviously, he passed his hearing test when he was born, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see the tube situation next week once they give him a bigger view.
They'll probably do it with palate repair. I think that's more related to when they close it, they want it to drain out, like all the fluid to drain out. Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, no, don't learn from me, because I go back to the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah,
we are not medical doctors. No, I'm kidding. I think they probably will. Usually they do it around that time. But I have heard of people, especially if he didn't fail any hearing tests or anything like that, then they probably place him then because there's no urgency to do it like now. What do you think is something that you wish people knew about children with cleft lip and palate, just in general?
It's a great question. Just knowing that they're just like any other baby out there is, I feel like, the biggest thing. I feel like a lot of people like look down upon cleft babies, but you're just like everybody else out there. Heck, when you first tell people that your baby has a cleft, there's always somebody that's like, oh yeah, I know so and so, they were born with a cleft and this and that. And I'm like, I just wish it was just talked about more. That it's very common. It could happen to anybody, not just because you have a history of it. It could just happen randomly, just like it did to us.
Yeah. Have you been hesitant at all to bring him out, or what has been the feeling or your approach to bringing him out in the public or grocery stores?
I was nervous at first, because I just didn't want people staring at my baby. I would put like his little car seat visor down. But then I hated doing that too because I don't want to hide my baby. So now I just boost him around. Like we went to a food fest last weekend and we just had him out in the world. That we got looks, but I didn't care. I'm like, if you guys want to know, you're more than welcome to ask questions. That was like, I guess, another big thing. People are curious or have questions, ask the questions. Don't just stare, I guess is my biggest thing.
I love that you asked this or that you said that, because how do you ask? If I am going to approach your family, how do I ask?
It's true. I guess it is a sensitive topic. And I feel like I'm sure there's other families or cleft affected people that would answer this differently. Obviously, there's nice ways to ask this. They could just be like, oh, what a cute baby. What's wrong in a way? I know I've heard horror stories from the Facebook groups of like, oh, what's wrong with your baby? Why do they look like that? That's not how to approach that subject. That is for sure. There's definitely better ways to go about it, but I welcome all the questions as long as they come at me peacefully and nice. I will do the same.
I wonder if somebody approached like, do you mind if I ask? I'm curious about your baby's condition. I think condition is the word that's going to be off-putting though. But if they said, I'm curious about your baby's condition, can I ask you more questions? I feel like I would be more receptive to that. Maybe.
Yeah. Definitely.
If you express like genuine curiosity and just like wanting to educate yourself, it is. But I think that people don't know how to get the question out.
Yeah.
Or instead of being like, what's that?
What's wrong?
Yeah. Or like, what's the step on his face? Or I don't know.
Yeah, like a 4-year-old can get away with questions like that. But adults can have a little bit more of understanding of how to approach those type of subjects, at least a little bit better.
Yeah. I asked a cleft affected person the same thing. And I'm always curious. I'm always curious about just wondering what's the right way to ask, because it is always awkward. But also like me, myself, I actually do want to talk about it. So it's not like I don't want to talk about it, but some people don't want to talk about it.
You're walking on eggshells in a way. You don't know what to do in that situation, which I give people grace for, definitely.
Meanwhile, I'm like, ask me.
I'll educate you. I'll educate you.
So yeah, I've been always curious about that. So just in closing, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned along your journey?
Biggest lesson that I've learned is patience and just give yourself grace. Honestly, I just wish I could talk to myself. Obviously, we talk from like pregnancy to literally just like a few weeks ago, just telling myself it will be fine and it will get better. It will just keep getting better. But I know during those moments you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's there and it will happen. I feel like this week has been like the best week. Like he finally done like crying every time we put it in and out. Knock on wood, pray it stays that way. He's getting back to being a happy baby, and we're starting to hit that point now that he's starting to sleep. So I feel a bit more of a human. It definitely gets better. And I know for all the moms out there, it's hard, especially with feeding and pumping and all that other fun stuff that people don't think about on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I echo that sentiment as well. And even just me sharing with you today, it does get better. Like you feel it getting better little by little. But I remember speaking with Gina. She posted about this, that she's at the Celebrating Mama on Instagram. And her daughter was also born with the bilateral cleft lip and palate. And she just Brianna's had her palate repaired, and they went for their speech evaluation that she was doing fine. And she went to go make her next appointment, and they were like, there aren't any more appointments until her annual. And it was just like that realization, wow, I've been doing this for the past 2 years. And then it's almost like, it's like the sadness that's, wait, no more appointments? What am I going to do with all this time?
I'm so used to coming in.
Yes. And there's this wild sense of like relief that kind of washes over you, but also this has become like my identity, my life.
Exactly.
And what do I do now? So yeah, I want to share that it does get better. It will get better. It will get easier. That's something that's a fact. Like I can promise that.
Yeah.
And but thank you so much, Summer, for having this conversation with me today. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for listening to the Our Forever Smiles, Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. Be sure to subscribe and submit a review of the podcast wherever you listen. I hope that you've enjoyed this audio experience. Maybe you cried a little, laughed a little, but more importantly, I hope that you feel a little piece of reassurance and even joy in your journey. Talk to you next week.